Hi, I'm Christopher. On the 27th of June 1905, the Russian Empire was in a full-scale war with the Japanese Empire. Just off of the Ukrainian coast, a Russian battleship was at gunnery practice. This boat was called the Potemkin. Life was tough for the soldiers aboard this ship. The officers were strict and the conditions they lived in were harsh. The defeats that they tasted at the hands of the Japanese lowered their morale as well as the confidence in the government. This is the case for both the soldiers and the citizens living in the Russian Empire at the time. What makes this boat so famous was the revolt that took place on it. The final straw was whenever the soldiers stationed on the ship were given rotten meat infested with maggots for food. Refusing to eat it, Ippolit Galavosky, a man who I cannot pronounce his name, had a history of harsh punishment for soldiers. He threatened to shoot crew members for not eating the food. This wasn't a very smart move. A full-on revolt led by Avansky Masushenko took place in the battleship, which led to the killing of Captain Velikov as well as Galovsky. On the 7th of July of the same year, the Potemkin, now being sailed by the rebel crew, had made its way to Romania where the crew was offered asylum, but the crew refused. They instead made their way to Ukraine where they returned the Potemkin to the Russian Empire and handed themselves in. Jump 12 years later, the Russian Revolution took place in the year 1917, which led to the overthrowing of the Tsar and the Russian Empire, as people were now living under a new and revolutionary ideology. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin was now the governor of the new Soviet Union. He had realized the potential of the new art form known as cinema. He has once been quoted as saying, "Of all the arts, for us, the cinema is the most important." He's seen it as a great way to promote the new communist ideology. A year after his death, a film by Sergei Eisenstein was released. This movie was called Battleship Potemkin. Sergei Eisenstein had made several propaganda movies such as Strike in October, but out of all the films he had made, with maybe the exception of Ivan the Terrible movies, Battleship is what he's known for. The movie was considered so powerful at the time that countries across the globe refused to play it in fear that it may inspire an uprising. The film, of course, is based off of the events that took place in the year 1905. The movie, of course, portrays the soldiers as good guys and the army general and the government as bad guys. No surprise there. The main reason why this works so well is the filmmaking. The movie was revolutionary for the techniques that it used during the time, the biggest one being montages. From Rocky training to go the distance against Apollo Creed to Push to the Limit being played over Tony Montana's Rise to the Top. Montages are considered normal to the audience by this point. But in 1925, Sergei Eisenstein had only put this theory into practice with this film. Montages were a great way for Eisenstein to make a movie as visceral as possible. The scene that sticks out in film lovers' minds the most is the Odessa Steps sequence. Even to this day, this scene is influential for its juxtaposition of images to make this horrific event more powerful, as Eisenstein is able to cut several different people on the steps and between each other, from the girl with a bullet mark for her glasses to a baby rolling down the steps in a pram. This scene has been paid homage to before in movies such as The Untouchables, directed by Brian De Palma. Now, I mentioned that this movie was in fact banned in several countries, and we may find this absurd today that that movie can inspire a revolution, but you have to take into consideration that film was still a relatively new art form at the time. People wouldn't have found it's easy to break away from the illusion that it's what's taking place on screen. In fact, the first film ever made and shown to a live audience was actually scared people, even though it was only a train driving towards a camera. A great film to compare Battleship Potemkin to would be A Birth of a Nation, a silent film released in the year 1915. The film was infamous for its portrayal of black people, the most evil race on the planet, while the southern democratic slave owners were decent, kind people who were noble heroes fighting for what was right. This movie was also revolutionary for its filmmaking techniques. It did nothing to help the racial tensions of the time. Countries of the likes of Nazi Germany would produce propaganda films of the likes of The Eternal Jew and Olympia. Propaganda films still exist today, but most people are smarter and can see through the filmmaking. The magic of movies is not as strong as it once was. Battleship Potemkin is still considered one of the greatest movies ever made, and is still influential to this very day, and is recommended viewing for anyone into cinema. Thanks for listening.